How are you today?
I'm doing well. I think, like many of us, it's a day with more than a little bit of anxiety and uncertainty. But I think that's why it's great to have these opportunities to chat and sit around
Absolutely.
and talk with our friends and neighbors.
I think, just you and Miss Pope just said the same thing, anxiety. Why do you think there's so much anxiety around this election specifically?
Well, I think there's a lot riding on it, and and it's happening in an environment in which there's just so much uncertainty between coronavirus and economic upheaval and social movements that are really engaging people having really fervent, strong political views that can border on, pretty scary at times for folks, frankly. And I think there's this real feeling that we need to find ways to kind of bring ourselves back together again as a country in some respect. And so I won't go into my personal views because I heard a quote once before about when you're a leader in a college setting that you lose the right to have a public political opinion, but
Wow.
but I certainly have my opinion, and I have voted.
Okay.
I have voted, and I'm looking forward to being around on campus this evening. I'm planning to be on campus here in Cazenovia tonight, and I know a lot of other faculty and administrators are going to be as well, and just to be available to engage students and others in conversation and any kind of dialogue that people want to have.
Right. For the people who don't know, would you mind explaining just what's happening on campus tonight?
Sure, and please fill in any gaps that I
Oh
missed
yes,
along the way.
absolutely, absolutely.
But I know that a number of members of well, it started with some members of our President's Council on Diversity and Inclusion. That members from that group, a number of them are going to be on campus this evening. These are faculty and staff and student leaders available to meet with students in some of the common areas on campus, as well as to be available virtually on Teams for conversations with students. And then I think there's a number of us who are additionally just going to be kind of available to kind of be roamers on campus as needed, and check in and make sure everybody's feeling comfortable, feeling safe, and having opportunities to express themselves. So, and I think it's gone beyond the initial commission. There was like a call for people who might be interested to come to campus tonight, and I think we've got a good number of faculty and staff who are going to be around. So,
why do you think that's so important for our students right now?
I think in part for the reasons I was mentioning around just all the uncertainty that's out there, and I think just feeling the need sometimes to be able to connect with other people directly and talk about what you're feeling, and the need to be able to express that in a safe context, in a place where whatever your opinions are, you're free to share them and they won't be judged, but also to be able to share any concerns, thoughts, fears, anxieties you have, and just to have those be heard. I think that's going to be important for folks. So as I say, it's a day with like all kinds of uncertainty, so the more we can connect with each other, I think that'll be good. And especially at a time when, because of COVID, we haven't had as many opportunities. We're kind of out of practice, in terms of what it's like to sit down next to each other and talk like this.
6 feet.
6 feet, you're right? We're modeling 6 feet here, and but yeah, it's I'm looking forward to that part.
Okay. So in all of your years, and I'm sure you've had a few years, right? Have you ever felt any anxiety around any election such as this?
Well, probably not to this level, and I was a political science major in college, so this is politics have always been an interest and a passion for me, and usually I would really look forward to election days with it was almost like for people who were into politics, it was sort of like a Super Bowl, election days, you get together sometimes with your friends, or you're having snacks and drinks and hanging out and watching the returns come in. But I think the stakes are so high in this election, and again, for all the reasons I mentioned, I think there's not that same kind of, and because we're obviously needing to distance and do all these sort of things, it's not the same kind of environment. I think it's more a relief that we did. I think the feeling is we're relieved to have finally gotten to this day, and all the tension that's come with it. Hopefully, and it might not be done tonight, but hopefully now we can start to take some steps toward getting past it. So which is a long way of saying I always used to really enjoy election night watching, but this is more one I think we just want to get through in some respect. Yeah.
But the getting through, I think, is sometimes problematic, right? Because it's you're just rushing to get it over with, so you're not really enjoying what this democracy is supposed to be. You know, a time where you're making a choice. Do you feel that there's a choice being made here? And there's a lot of conversation about the electoral college versus the popular vote.
Yeah.
So how do you think that will go?
Boy, it's the electoral college piece is a great conversation, and I think one that people are going to be having beyond this race. I mean, if you think about it, it's just kind of it's become increasingly sort of a bizarre notion in a democracy that the person who gets the most votes doesn't necessarily win. In fact, we've seen 2 recent elections in which that wasn't the case, including the last one in which the current president lost by 3 million votes in terms of popular vote. And how can that be? And the electoral college, there were a lot of good reasons for it at the onset of the founding of the country, and some would still argue now that it's a way for smaller states to have a little more voice and representation. And would any presidential candidates ever be going to Iowa and New Hampshire if we didn't have the electoral college? Probably not. They'd be focusing on the city, right? They definitely don't. And so those areas have a historic connection to their place in the cycle, and they enjoy that. But I do think it needs to be looked at, because we have the technology now, despite all the concerns you hear about the vote and right, exactly, in ways to kind of corrupt the vote. But I think we're able to secure voting. We have technology to be able to count every ballot appropriately. And so given that, there doesn't seem to be a lot of arguments left anymore against just counting every vote equally, right? That whoever gets the most votes wins.
I think that's how it goes in basketball. Whoever scores the most, obviously won.
Right, you don't get awarded for scoring more in the third quarter. That doesn't outweigh the second quarter or whatever. So it is probably time for that discussion to happen again. And I think that on a positive note, I guess it's just been really heartening to see the tens of millions, maybe 100 million at this point, of people who voted early, just the record numbers of people turning out. Obviously, people are passionate. I think there was a lot of concern that people were not going to feel comfortable or would be fearful coming out to vote. And that has not been the case. People have been dedicated to getting out there and making their voice be heard.
I agree. I think while they're making their voices heard, we have oppositions, right? As a political science, I used to be a political science major. Why do you think there's so much divide amongst people in between the parties, but just in general? Because this thing that we're doing right now on campus is probably like a preemptive measure just in case. But why do you think there's so much division occurring at this moment? It's a loaded question.
It's hard to say, right? I mean, there's many reasons, I think, and there is sort of a increased tribalism in some ways within the U.S., and there's been divide among socioeconomic lines around racial and ethnic lines, and those tensions have really been kind of exacerbated, I think, during this cycle, and has been a big part of that. Also, I think when people are feeling challenged economically, when people are feeling a loss of security, they're fearful, and when you're fearful, people react many different ways when they're fearful, including act out in aggression toward others. And I think that there's a lot of fear out there. I think the U.S. is in an interesting place demographically, where shifts and changes are coming that a lot of people find threatening, or that people might lose their position in society, or lose a way of life that as they envision how they had lived it, or how things should be done. And I think all of that coming together just has things really, really tense. And it's interesting, because you think of where we've come in the last, just since the turn of the century, right? the cycles that we've been through. And we had a very contested election in 2000 that ended up going to the Supreme Court, where Bush defeated Gore and also had fewer votes, fewer popular votes.
And Bush was golfing. If I recall correctly, he was somewhere golfing before they decided.
I think when it was ultimately decided, right? Because it was so much later, yeah. So we've been through that cycle. I think there was the Obama election, which a lot of people saw as a real marker for hope and change, and that engaged a lot of people that hadn't been involved in the electoral process before, which was great. And so, I don't know. It's like there is something of a pendulum, I think,
as it
swinging here. But it's I go back to the numbers tonight. I think that if there's one great positive to look at so far today, what we're seeing, and actually in the last month, it's the early voting, the people voting today.
Right.
There are a number of states that have already surpassed, by midday today, it surpassed the total number of voters they had in the 2016 election.
That's incredible.
So, people are making their voice heard. So
you can't see it, but right here, right in between us is
right here.
Right here. Is it right here, Jay? Is he touching it?
Yeah. Okay. How we doing?
Right here is a live bat of the votes, and as they're coming in. As they're coming in. It's right.
So Florida's about like right here. Miami-Dade right here.
Is he touching Florida?
Florida about here?
You're touching Florida.
All right. That's a big one.
You're touching Florida.
That's the extent of my analysis. Let's watch Florida.
Did Jay have a question for us? Please feel free. Oh, okay. Oh, wonderful. Oh.
Well, we'll know a lot kind of early tonight, even though we might not know, even though things might not be decided tonight. But I think the first round of polls that close after 7:30, we'll know some stuff.
Right.
We'll know some things. And
I hope so.
And particularly, I think North Carolina, Florida, and Texas close relatively early, and those are all traditionally Republican states. But if we start to see some movement there, changes there, that can be a real early indicator. But a lot of it we won't know till later on. And Florida's always exciting.
So are those numbers electoral? No, those not electoral. Are they just
by states?
That's projected electoral count.
Yep.
Yeah, they need to get to 270 to win.
Wow. So it seems like Biden has won, and this is not an official.
This would be the earliest call of the
right?
Right? Like CNN's going to come breaking in.
Right. We have Biden at what is it, Jay? 279, and Trump at 163 electoral college votes. Wow.
Now, one of the things I was reading a lot of today, they were saying, beware, like early on especially, that there's going to be a lot that's unknown. So
it's like the tortoise and the hare.
Right.
It's
dig in for the long haul. Yeah.
Slow and steady. So I have a very interesting question.
Yeah.
So if you were president of the United States,
okay,
right, what would you do differently? And also identify 3 issues.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
I wish I'd given this a little more.
No, I just came up with it, right? So it's fine. We're on the same page. Identify 3 issues that you see presently in America, and it could be military, healthcare, or whatever you choose.
Yep.
And what would you do differently? And how do you think we can kind of build this pseudo-utopian society?
So 3 big issues. So I'll work my way through this. So one would certainly be, what I do think there's systematic injustice and racism that is part of our history.
Okay.
That I think a lot of folks over the years have done a lot to try to address. And so I'm not going to talk one party or the other, but I think looking at educational opportunities, healthcare, all of those things kind of tie in the sense that, and it's not just race. You look at socioeconomic opportunity. I mean, they talk about the divide of children in terms of by the time children start kindergarten. In terms of how many books you've been exposed to by the
Yes,
time you start
yes.
kindergarten, and how almost that gap can almost be too hard to overcome sometimes. In other words, it's through no fault of your own. The circumstances you're born into can really drive a lot of your life, and I think there are ways for the government to take steps to try to mitigate that and address that. And I know people get concerned about spending a lot on social programs, or whether or not these things get called socialism or anything else. But I think, looking at it across the political spectrum, it's not a liberal or conservative thing per se. It's just to look at opportunity and how do you make sure that everybody has opportunity, whether, again, in healthcare and employment, in education, and educational opportunity, as your prior guest expert was could speak more to. I think climate change is a huge topic because it's here, right? And I remember 25, 30 years ago saying, people saying we need to start taking some steps, or else it's going to get past the point where we can, curb things enough to preserve our current, kind of quality of life. And we're seeing now across all of these other things we talk about in terms of improvements in society and all that aren't going to, matter a heck of a lot if we have an uninhabitable planet, And I think that's someone that it can resonate with everyone because it affects everybody. And the storms that we're seeing, whether they're tornadoes, floods, wildfires, hurricanes, they're all more intense. We see the warming planet and the impact that that's having, and that also tends to exacerbate injustice when you look at the places that get hit hardest by those conditions often.
Katrina.
But exactly, yeah. So, but I do think I think taking a serious look very quickly, and I know that's been a discussion in this election, but at the state of what we can do to try to mitigate it, or at least lessen the impact of climate change. And that's something that's a multi-generational task. And that's work we're doing for ourselves, but also for the next generation and the generation thereafter, to make sure that, we've got a place we can continue to inhabit. So that's a huge thing for me that I think has gotten a little bit lost in the context of necessarily because of all these more immediate in our face challenges that we're dealing with currently, not the least of which being COVID, of course. So, and I think COVID is getting it under control, and doing what we need to do and listening to the experts to help us do that.
Dr. Fauci, you were right. Sometimes, I guess.
This is where I'm not pretty much giving away my political views without coming out and saying anything too specific. So I'll let you do that.
And you have one more. So COVID was your third one?
Well, yes. Well, I guess that's a more immediate short-term thing, hopefully. Hopefully than the others. I mean, addressing the climate is huge. Addressing equality of access and opportunity is huge. And and I guess I threw a bunch in together, so I kind of cheated. So I don't know if it was two.
No, that was still one, because that was a large systematic.
Racism
and oppression,
education.
Just,
in there. I think I had healthcare.
That's just one. That's only one. You got one more.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, one more. Immigration is a big topic.
Yes. Yep. Well, yes. Immigration is a huge topic, and I work locally with a group here in Cazenovia called Cazenovia Welcomes Refugees.
Yes.
Which, again, it's not a political organization. There's people from across the political spectrum that are involved in that group, because it's really the notion of it is to make Cazenovia a welcoming and hospitable place for families who formerly were refugees, and to make this the kind of community where they would enjoy moving to and being part of.
Absolutely.
So, but that's our legacy as a country. That's our heritage, is being a place where people can come for opportunity. And so I think it's concerning to see that that's not necessarily the environment we've got currently. Right. And I think that would be something I'd want to see addressed. And we all do better when people from around the world join us.
Yes.
You know, and I think it lifts all boats, so to speak. And so I think that's, again, we talked about fear earlier, and people fearing people who are different or come from different places, or who are perceived as coming for their jobs or whatever.
Yes.
But I think that in this global economy, that's how we all succeed, is together. And you know, we want the best and brightest from wherever they come from, right?
What would be? I'm sorry to cut you.
No, that's
what would be an ideal system for immigration?
Well, I think, you know, to review it so that it's done in a way that the people are comfortable with. I mean, I obviously on this issue, I come from a more liberal standpoint. I mean, I would like to see, I mean, the current limits that have been put on immigration period are pretty stern in terms of, like, you know, the numbers of people actually able to come into the country. I would like to see that addressed, but I think you can do it in a way that also gets at the concerns of those who are concerned about safety and who's coming into the country. And what I would say is that the vetting process is strong already. I mean, and I don't know if people understand that. So maybe part of it is education. You know, when we were more concerned with terrorism, you know, it's funny how things, it's not funny, but with things cycling, you know, threats of terrorism was a big concern, you know, not too long ago. And I think more immediate concerns now have come to the forefront, like COVID, having a pandemic. But I think at the time when we were more focused on threats from other parts of the globe, there was concern that if people are coming in, that, you know, that potentially you could be bringing in dangerous folks. And I think that the State Department, I mean, the vetting that immigrants go through to come into the country is incredibly thorough. So, so I think a lot of it would just be education around people understanding how it is that people get to come to this country. And sure, we can talk about safeguards and precautions to put into that process, but I think we all benefit by having that expertise and that diversity that really is what we're founded on as a country. Right. So, you know. So anyway, I don't have a lot of policies.
When's the election? When are you?
When am I running?
When are you running? 2024. You got my vote.
Well, I in a recent forum, I think it was the forum that we had on campus, our student government president, Roshan, I think I pledged my vote for her at some point. So maybe she'll have me as her running mate at someday.
Sure.
So.
You got my vote regardless. Okay. Oh my God.
Well, I actually have to run back up the hill to my office and do a couple things before I run home and get into something more comfortable before I come back to campus tonight for the long haul. So
thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. I wish I could shake hands, but
we're here.
I'll give you one of those. And everybody out there, have a good evening. And those of you on campus, perhaps we'll see you on campus. So,
Dave Berry, everyone.
All right.
You know?
Thank you. Take care. Here's Florida right here.
Good Florida. Good Florida. So on that note, we will take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we're going to keep it going. So, hello. Would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
All right. I'm Danielle McLaughlin. I'm a senior at Cazenovia College. My major is human services. I minor in disability studies. What else?
You're graduating when?
I'm graduating next year. Well, I'm graduating this academic school year, but I'm a junior, so I'm graduating a year early.
That's amazing.
I just can't put it in the rate.
And what are you doing after you graduate?
I've been starting to apply to different grad schools. Patrick's helping me, so that's fun.
Where do you want to go?
I want to go to Howard University when I finish at Cazenovia.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Big D, right? Go by the name Big D.
Yeah.
You know what's going on right now with the election. How do you feel about this election?
I mean, I don't really feel like we have like I feel like whichever way it ends up going is really not going to go well. It's just one way can go worse than the other. Like that's my image of it. So like, it was really hard for me to vote because it's like, I don't really believe in anything that either of the candidates are offering, but then you can't speak about it and be hypocritical and not vote. So it's just kind of, I just felt like I was kind of forced to vote. I forced myself to really vote because you have to be a part of it somehow. You can't just speak about it. So,
right. Yeah. Why do you think there's so much division in this election specifically?
I mean, just like the type of populations that the candidates, I guess, reach out to in a sense. Like, it's two completely different populations. I think a lot of like minorities and African Americans and people in those type of populations are voting for Biden. And those are the type of people that like he attracts. And then as for Trump, like it's more like rich people, more upper class or more privileged people voting for him.
Oh, wonderful. I guess I would just ask, like, what would you hope comes out of this election? Not just whoever wins, but what would you hope that the winner of this election will do moving forward for the country and for the people?
Just more awareness of like the real, like the main problems that's going on in the world, like a lot of stuff that isn't really touched base on. Like we're number one in a lot of really negative factors compared to other different countries and stuff, and the way we go about things is completely different. Like I know other countries laugh at us like when they see the type of stuff that America as a whole like promotes. So I'm just hoping that more I'm hoping that more awareness is brought onto like the bigger problems and the bigger controversial topics that are going on today.
So as an African American young woman, right? What does America mean to you?
I honestly don't feel like it's for me. Like I don't think that it's a country. I don't think it's equality. I don't think there's any freedom. Like I think you have to be a certain race, a certain class, a certain gender to really get the America equality, freedom kind of thing. Like I feel like it's for specific people, specific populations. So me not being a part of that population, I don't feel like I'm not happy to be from here. Like I don't. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
I'm not really proud of being from here, I guess.
Wow. So what do you think would help you to be proud to be an American?
Like whoever the president, whoever we do get as president, if they were to like touch base on different aspects of factors or like populations, not only talking about things that benefit their people or like their population, touching based on Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, like this people with disabilities, like all types of stuff, just not stuff that their kind can benefit from, because that's not the only kind that there is in the country.
Well, this is an amazing question.
That was a good question.
Great answer.
I feel like I'm
as a student, you work with, I think, disabled students population here with our mental health and counseling service. How do you think that kind of, or these people have been affected by this election, if any? Do you see any?
I haven't really thought about that much, I guess, because not that like me not being around that population like lessens my care for them or anything, but it's just that I'm used to being around them, but with COVID, like things are different now, so I'm not really seeing it like face to face or anything. But I do think that the way voting went about this year was even harder than it was to vote before. Like this was really, really hard, I think, for a lot of different populations. Like voter suppression is real. So I think voting could have been handled a different way to make it easier, easier to accommodate for more populations, more different types of people, including people with disabilities. But that's a regular thing. Like even without the pandemic, like it's always just been hard for certain populations to vote.
Right. And I would just ask this question: as a student, how has it been for you to gain access to voting? Is this your first year voting?
This is my first year. Yeah, this is my first year voting. I did register to vote. I think the school does do a good job spreading awareness of voting and where to vote, how to vote. Like I was stuck, and I honestly blame myself a little bit because like wasn't paying attention to emails, wasn't paying attention to flyers. But when I went to Patrick helped me vote actually. I just it was one day. It was getting too soon to. It was just getting way too soon to election. Well, to today, and I was like, I gotta like I don't even know what to do, but I know I have to do it. So I just went straight to Patrick, and I'm like, how do I vote? Like I'm like, what do I do? Like what do I need? How does this work? And he told me all the steps. I did it right away, and it's the easiest thing ever. It's just hard getting to that step. Like once your foot is in, you're in. But
Right.
it's just like spreading awareness and letting people know how easy it really is. Like all we really hear is, oh, vote, 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 go vote,
Right.
go vote. But what is voting? How do we do it? Where do we go? Like what do we need? All types of stuff. That's the information that sometimes is lacked, and then it makes it seem harder than what it really is.
So, do you feel empowered now?
Yeah, a little bit. Like I feel like I have more of a say. Like it's not like I'm just saying how I feel based off of like my opinion and I have nothing to back it up. Like I can say that I voted and I can say why I voted and why I didn't vote for the other part. Like, stuff like that. I just have more of a say, and now I could help other people vote. Like my roommates and stuff. I'm like, guys, it's so easy. Like, come on, we're gonna do it right now.
And you help.
Yeah.
So you're empowering others
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. I
That's
didn't
an
even look at
amazing
it that
thing.
way.
So you're out here just giving power to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
It's that easy.
It's that easy. So to any of the candidates tonight, if they're watching, I know both of them are watching this channel right now because this is the best thing that's on YouTube, right? What would you say to them? Whoever, did they earn your vote? But what would you say to them that you would like to see in the next 4 years?
Just to be fair and considerate to the things that you say and the decisions that you make. And like, you really can't please everybody. Like if we're realistic, you can't please everybody, but just try not to please one specific group of people or one specific like group with power or status or something like that. Like just try to please everybody and just, that's about it.
Not even student debt?
I mean, that's honestly like that's a big worry, but it sucks that it's like the least of my worries. Like, and that's a really, really, really big problem.
Right.
But that's like in the back of my mind because there's so much other stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. President, Mr. Soon to be President, and Kamala and Pence, we need a change. And we hope that you can provide that change for us.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, we have young people out here. They're voting. They are empowering themselves, and they are empowering one another. So let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Any final words?
Oh, I'm in the middle of dyeing my hair right now. That's why I look like this. I swear I don't usually look like this. I'm just going through some things right now. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, Danielle, Big D, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Peace.
Air
Peace up. Okay, we'll take a short 2-minute break, and we'll be right back. We're good? And we're back. This should be my television books. You like that? Yeah. And we're back. Let's try it one more time. I feel like I'm gonna edit this anyway, so it's fine. Not currently. Yeah. But we only have about how many viewers do we have right now, Jay? Like 3? The FBI included. We have 5. Oh my God. We're getting up there. So hello everyone. Welcome back. As you know, my name is Patrick. I don't think I ever introduced myself. I never did, right? Hello. My name is Patrick Camillia, and welcome to Common Grounds Live. I am joined here with Susie. Susie, would you mind introducing yourself and let the people know a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm a Cazenovia native, technically Fenner. So I'm living in Syracuse now. I'm a filmmaker and a freelance film crew person and substitute teacher in the Syracuse district. And I came home today to vote because I'm still registered in Fenner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that you're working on a film, on a documentary right now. Would you mind just sharing?
Sure.
a little
So
bit?
I'm currently working on a documentary about Ray Rinaldi, who is he owns a gym on the west end of Syracuse. It's also an education center. He, for decades now, has brought in at-risk youth into the gym, giving them a safe place and opportunity to learn how to box and discipline and just a chance to turn their life around. And
Right.
thousands of kids have taken him up on it over the years.
Yeah, I saw in some of the trailers you have state assemblymen speaking about
Phil
this. man.
Magnarelli, and former Senator John DeFrancisco, former police chief
Wow.
Fowler. Yeah,
Wow.
a lot of people support Ray.
What made you want to do this documentary about him specifically?
It's a great story. It's a great cause, and what I've learned from Ray over the years that I've gotten to know him is that the youth are our most valuable asset. That's really his, like what his
Right.
talking point, and it's true. And that's actually, it ties in well with the election, is that we've got to be thinking about the future
Right.
of the kids when we're making policy and voting. And it's hard to see such a great program like this being taken away from them because of the shutdown.
Right.
Kind of out of any politician's hands. If you think about it, it's really a safety issue.
So you work with the Syracuse school district with COVID. How has that been affected? Has that affected your ability to teach, your ability to be a substitute teacher?
I'd have to say yes, because I haven't subbed yet this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they need fewer subs. They're working out their system to have subs be able to come in and do the distance learning.
Mhm.
They have blended classrooms, so that some kids are there and you're online.
Wow.
So it's definitely had an impact. And I get the messages from the superintendent of the district updating the whole community. This, like whether someone's tested positive and protocol and everything like
Right.
that. So it's definitely a very daily thing.
Has the school that you worked at shut down at all, or is it still?
None of them are shut down that I know of. Some of them
Right.
might, say no classes for the rest of the week. So, and I'll go around to a lot of different schools.
Okay, so you're not
Yeah.
just at one school specifically. You work
Right.
mostly for the district.
Yeah.
So we're so happy to welcome you back and to have you here. We have Jay quick trying to fix it. Yes, Jay. But today's election day. You're out. You're getting ready to go vote.
Mhm.
What is impacting your decision when you're at the poll? Like, what do you think about when you're at the poll, when you're ready to vote?
Well, it's tough because, to be honest, I'm kind of fed up with all of the choices that we have, and it's frustrating that this country can't embrace third parties and allow more debate to happen. It's so controlled at the level of the media that sometimes I feel like it's ineffective, but I still vote. I do, and so that's kind of how I feel when I'm in that moment.
Do you think we should have more than two parties?
I think it could be helpful. I mean, we do have more than two parties.
Right.
It's just that they're not given fair airtime. They're not, they just don't have the power, and that alone is like why are politicians holding so much power? And,
Right.
And it's really we're seeing how it impacts us. It's like without the ties with rich families, you can't make a good run as a candidate. although I do see there are some people around the country who are making quite an impact. A lot of younger people, in fact. There's someone in Maryland or Virginia or Baltimore.
I don't know.
Who's running? Who's a young woman who's making an impact, and I think the message people are getting is, we're gonna become more politically active, and I think that's what we need to do is get more involved at the local level.
I agree. But how important do you think that is, especially for an upcoming generation? Like we just had Danielle sitting here, empowering her, her friends to vote who never voted before, because either it's a lack of information or however the information is being disseminated down.
Right.
How do we empower more young people to vote? How do we help them see, the power of it?
I think they first have to see firsthand how voting does empower them. So they've got to see it to understand it.
Right.
And I think to get young people more involved or excited about the political process, they have to really understand it and get involved. Not just, and beyond voting, it's not just, okay, I cast my vote, therefore I did my civic duty. It's like, no, it goes beyond that. It goes, where are you helping in life that you could be, that could benefit people?
Right.
Because when you help people, you help yourself. And it's all about taking personal responsibility, because I think we've gone too long in this country saying, well, the president's going to do this. The president should do this. It's like, well, are they doing what we need them to do? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So I feel that people can take it upon themselves to do more.
When did you realize the power of voting? Or, at what point did you say, I need to vote because I need to be able to create a change, or I want to be part of a change? When did that happen for you?
Well, honestly, early on, like when I first started voting, I was interested in the third party candidates. And I've always kind of been interested like in the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. So that's I've kind of seen the importance of that. That's kind of driven me to vote more so than, except maybe on a local level. I think that's where the real impact might happen.
Right.
Certain issue that's local. Because New York usually always goes Democrat.
Right.
And so I guess I've always, as a New Yorker, thought, well, it always goes Democrat. So maybe I can, make a statement in my vote as to who I, really like to vote for, usually third party.
Okay. Do you have any anxiety around this election?
Yeah, because I think we're entering an era now that it's all over the information, where it's coming from, is it real?
Right.
Who can we trust? What sources can we trust? Right. And also, I know as a filmmaker, and I know a lot of people know that also, it's very easy to manipulate people through what information you're putting out, how you're putting it out, how you create it, and how you manipulate it. We saw, like, there was a movie that came out this year, The Irishman, made Robert De Niro look like he was 40 years old.
Yes.
And so I think it's called deep fake, right?
I'm not familiar.
There's also this term called deep fake where it can look like a person is actually doing the talking, but it's not them. Like they can, they can put some sort of look over the person. So
I was surprised that he really looked that young. I was like, man, this man's like in his 20s.
Exactly.
At the awards, it was incredible.
I know. I didn't realize what was happening until I read about it afterwards. I said, how did they do this? Most of the time, Hollywood casts a younger actor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was that him? I never.
It was him, and they digitally made him look younger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because that is great programming, right?
It is programming, exactly. And I feel like we're getting into this technological era where programming is a great word, right? I mean, we have to be aware. The young kids have to be aware.
So we have to program the kids to be Is that what you're saying? We need to program
I think
our
the programming's
kids to be.
happening already.
It's already happening.
I think so. But no, I mean, I'm not saying that to say that we're doomed. I just think that being aware, understanding new technology.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that it's more important than ever to build community bonds in that way.
I think that's an amazing segue to probably like my next question is, why do you think people are so divided, and why do you think it's difficult for us to talk about who it is that we're voting for, and why does it cause so much division, in your personal opinion?
It's interesting. I think that we're kind of taught. I actually just stopped at my friend's house, and her young girl said, "Who are you voting for?" And then the other young girl said, "You're not supposed to ask adults that." And isn't that something? I think that that's just always been told. You don't tell people who you're voting for. Obviously, we all get into political conversations.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of a general thing. I don't know. Maybe you don't want to be judged. Maybe you feel like it's your personal, right to withhold that information. What was the first part of your question again?
Just why do you think why do you think people are so divided?
Yeah, we are. We're divided amongst our economic level of earnings. The gap is widening between rich and poor. Religiously, I feel like we're divided. Racially, I mean, along those lines, absolutely.
Right.
It's unfortunate. I don't know why it's like that.
As Dave Berg, Vice President of Cazenovia College, question earlier. If you were president of the United States, what would you do differently? And if you can choose 3 main issues to address, what would those issues be?
That's a great question. I feel like that could be answered 2 ways.
Okay.
One, with the idealistic thinking,
Yes.
and the other one being, well, I don't know, like all the inner workings of politics enough to really know what the struggle is.
Right.
Like once you get into office, like where are you getting influence from? What can you say and what can you not say?
Right.
I'm sure that happens. There's a certain degree of I don't know, like there's a certain degree there, but I think the really important issues there's so many important issues, but I really do think this racial issue has bubbled up to the surface, and I think it's got to be handled in the right way.
Right.
And so that's probably one of our more important issues. We're going to have a big problem with people being evicted coming up soon. I think that's, I don't know if that, yeah,
Yes. I know.
I think that maybe it's just a New York State thing, but I
Okay.
feel like a lot of states are going to deal with it. People have been given a grace period to put off paying their rent.
Absolutely.
Landlords are going to be soon eligible to, I think it might be January 1st, to start their eviction process. People who have not been paying rent
Wow.
are going to have to deal with that. So that's a question. What's going to happen? Are people, are they going to be forgiven, or are people going to be really kicked out into the street?
As a president. Right?
As a president?
Madam President, how would you address that? Especially if you understand the plight of the tenants
Mhm.
who couldn't work, out of work for X amount of months, but
Yeah.
also the landlord who have to pay taxes on their properties,
Yeah.
have to support their properties, livelihoods, income. How would you address that? No pressure.
That's a tough situation because, every individual has been affected by how they've been compensated for the shutdown, whether
Yes.
people have gotten unemployment or they've kept their jobs or they've gotten some sort of business loan.
Right.
But as far as that goes, I'm not really sure the intricacies of that mandate. Like, okay, you don't have to pay, but you will have to pay when the time comes.
Right.
Some people have made some of those people probably have kept their jobs and some people probably haven't. And so it's going to be a matter of what can they really afford? How many of those people legitimately can't afford to pay, or how many of those people were like, oh, that's great, I don't have to pay.
Right.
So you have to kind of separate out, like, you know, then there's people who are poor money managers, and some people who legit can't make enough money to make ends meet. Single moms have more of an issue of, you know, the logistics of having your children at home with the shutdown. It's tough, you know, there you lose an income.
Absolutely.
So how to handle it, I think you want to avoid chaos, but you also want to be fair to the people being evicted and the landlords. So it's a tricky thing. It's not easy to be a politician and juggling all these issues.
It's hard. That's why I stopped being a political science major and went with communication. You know?
I don't get too political either.
You know, I think Alfred, look at your degree working. Right? This is your degree. I guess I have another question for you is, what is kind of like the one policy that you are looking at very closely this election?
I'll be honest and say I'm not.
You're not?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I guess I'm one of these people that doesn't get super political.
Okay.
I guess I'm thinking, I mean, there's definitely been some environmental things that Trump has kind of, I haven't taken a closer look into, you know, it's just like what the impact is, some of the environmental things that he's brought into policy. So that would be worth looking into. How much time have I got?
No.
As
No,
far
you
as
have
looking
to
into that
go.
before the voting closes, but
And what time are they closing?
no, I mean, I'm just kidding, but I guess I don't get overly political, which I probably should. You know, and I focus more on what I can do in my own community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you're doing a lot right now, especially with the filming and bringing this documentary together. I'm really excited to see it because I have not heard of the gentleman, and I don't know what's going on in Syracuse. And I know that the youth needs it, and so how can we empower the youth to vote, to find a voice, to know that their voice allows them to have a choice in what's going on? But do you have any last comments that you would make to anyone watching out in YouTube land? It's not TV land anymore. It's in YouTube land. About just the power of voting and how important it is.
Well, people definitely feel patriotic when they vote, and I think it's great. I think it's taking part in the process is our right, and people who are of age and have registered should definitely vote.
Right.
And know that you did what you can as far as that aspect of being involved in the process.
I guess I do have one last question, right? So voting, the popular vote versus the electoral college. I'm not sure how much you know about the electoral college. So we've seen in past elections where certain candidates would have the popular vote, but the electoral college would allow the other, candidate to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think didn't that happen with Hillary?
That happened with Hillary, and I think it also happened with Bush versus Gore.
Right, or the pregnant Chad situation, right?
No,
or is that different?
Yeah. Yes. We the audience is nodding yes, so yes. We have an audience. Socially distanced, all that.
You know, I kind of remember like the silly things about every president, like Bill Clinton. It depends on what the definition of is. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that question for you. I don't know enough about I know that people's opinions of that is that it's that system maybe needs to be changed. Maybe that's maybe that's another thing. Maybe some of our systems need to change.
Right.
And been hearing the word revolution. I think we've all been hearing that word. What does it mean? I think it means, like, the important thing I think it means is, like, don't be violent.
Right.
I would hope that, however upset people might get at the outcome of this election, like, just try to refrain from being too violent.
Right.
Don't hurt people or their property.
Right. That's
mostly people. Don't hurt other people.
That's one of our biggest fears. And here on campus, we've taken so many precautions We actually have faculty and staff coming back to campus to have various dialogues in different locations throughout the campus to build community, but to also foster these dialogues that these students want to have about while they have difference of opinions. And so why do you think there's so much violence or the potential for violence to occur due to this election?
In a way, it's almost like the only way to get to be heard, maybe. That might be the compulsion to act out of violence, It's like, I don't know what else to do. I feel affected by this. How can I lash out?
Right.
And I think that when you get into a group and maybe it starts with someone, it easily kind of cascades through. It's like, okay, this is okay because, a bunch of people are doing it. I can do it too. That might be, group mentality there. I'm not sure.
Well, we don't know, but we're prepared for anyone. We have CAS PD and we have campus safety, and we're ready for anyone. No violence. No violence. Please, no violence. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate you coming here.
Thanks
Do you want to tell people where they can find you? Like, you can say your Instagram, website, or so they can check out this film.
Sure. If you want to watch the trailer of my film, it's www.sjcody.com.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing me to talk about my project.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
And
for
you asked
coming in.
very great questions. I have to say, yes.
Is it just for the YouTube channel?
No,
Okay.
all the time.
This is in real life? Okay, great. Yeah, keep going. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. And welcome back. We're here with Tiffany Villaro. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah,
Tiffany Villaro. Right, Tiff?
That's what happens when you get nervous when
I
your
know,
friends are sitting over
right?
here.
Well, because I'm being watched now. The FBI is watching now. My brother's watching. There's a lot of people watching. Can you introduce yourself to the people, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany Villaro. I'm the Assistant Dean for Residence Life and Student Conduct at Cazenovia College.
Okay, and what brings you here today?
You may have said, please come down.
Oh, I did say that. This is why she's here. So Tiffany, today is election day.
Yep.
Tell the people how you feel.
It's important. Make sure you get out and vote. If you have not already, please do so. Polls are open till 9.
New York State.
New York State.
Right.
So I forget that we're on YouTube, so other people might be in other states.
Yeah.
So check your states. It might be 7, it might be 9, and see your local community might be a little bit different. So double check.
And for the rest of the world, this is strictly American voting. So if you're anywhere else, you can't vote. I'm sorry, you don't get a say. But this is strictly for American citizens. And on campus, you've done so much with voter registration. You've done so much with just trying to help get the word out. Why do you think it's so important for people to go out and vote?
It's important to have your voice heard. And I think some people don't think that their voice can be heard, but every vote does matter.
Okay.
There are those local elections where it's literally by a matter of just a few votes that you can win by. Or lose by. So you want to make sure you're supporting the candidates that you support and that they stand for something that you believe in and are pushing the agenda that you want.
So you were a poli-sci major or history?
Poli-sci and history.
Poli-sci and history. Yeah. So I asked a question earlier about the Electoral College. So, we've seen that people will get the popular vote, but will lose to the Electoral College. How important is that? And also, does my vote matter even if the popular vote gets for the person, but they win to electoral?
I'm always going to say your vote matters.
Okay.
No matter what, your vote matters. The only time you use the electoral college is in the presidential election.
Right.
That's it. That's the only time it's used. It's not used for anything else. So your vote matters in every other election that you are voting for. But I think I am a little bit facetious about this, but our founding fathers didn't believe that the common people could be trusted with the vote.
Okay.
So they made the electoral college.
They were aristocrats.
But and only landowners could vote either at that point too. So, but needless to say, they wanted rights for some of the people, not all of the people, and they had to make sure that they were preserving what they were trying to create at that point. So I think that sometimes electoral college has its good points and sometimes it has its bad. And each state has it structured a little bit differently, because sometimes it's whoever wins all of the popular vote gets all the electors from that state. There are 2 states that do that. But I think there's other states where you can, it's percentages, it's counties, it's set up differently in each state. And I also think that for some states, the electors can write for whoever they want, no matter what the people voted for.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really look into what your state represents and how they put those out there. So I think sometimes it can be great and sometimes it can be a detriment.
Can we change that? And should we change it?
No, we can't.
We can't.
We personally can't.
Okay.
No, but an act of Congress can.
An act of Congress.
So, but yes. So.
And how do we change acts of Congress?
Voting.
We go out and vote.
Yes.
You gotta vote.
So you need to vote for your representatives. You need to vote for your senators. And if that's something you believe in, you need to lobby those people.
Right.
And you need to talk to them about it. And believe me, sometimes every 4 years it seems to be a case. Every other 4 years, not every year in between, not so much. But it usually depends on the election.
Okay. There's been a lot of anxiety caused by this election. Caused by this presidency into this election. Mm-hmm. Why do you think people are so anxious?
I think it's hard because everyone wants to make sure that their voices are heard.
Right.
And they think that some people represent them better than others. And there are times when sometimes this president does, and sometimes when this president doesn't. And he reflects some people sometimes and other people other times. And I think that worries people, because are they going to get left out?
Right.
And is their group going to lose rights that they fought for already, that they have not gotten already? And I think sometimes that's with every election. You wonder who those people that are representing you, are they actually representing you?
Right.
Or are they representing themselves and who they are as a person? Mm-hmm. Or their constituencies that are paying for them to win those elections?
You know, it made me think, jokingly, about the No Child Left Behind, but it should have been No Vote Left Behind, mm-hmm. right? So we got to change that model. I would, if I was Biden, I'd probably do that, No Vote Left Behind.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's trying to get everybody out.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I think everyone's trying to get everyone out to vote.
Right.
I think some people are making it more difficult to vote right now. I think there are definitely ways that we're seeing it more, but I think we might be looking for it more in this election, right, that are impeding people's abilities to vote.
So if you can say that you've made a change of getting people out to vote, how important is it for you in your capacity as the Dean of Students of Resident Life, mm-hmm, to get students out to vote?
I think it's important. Like, no matter what your view is, you want your view heard, and you want to be represented, and you want to make sure that people know that these are the people that are representing them. Because right, you don't get a stake in the game unless you put a vote in. Right. If you sit home and don't vote, then you don't get to have a choice. Right. But that vote is your choice. Right. And it might be that your candidate doesn't win. It might be that your candidate does. But it also doesn't mean that's where you stop. You get to lobby for the things that you believe in. If your candidate doesn't win, it doesn't mean that you can't go to the candidate that does win and, mm-hmm, say, hey, these are things that are important to me. You represent me. Right. How can we work on this? Or what is your office doing to help this cause? Is there a way that I can help with that cause? Are there other lobbying groups that you might be able to work with and volunteer for or work for? It could be a job that you get that puts forth your special interest. Right.
So voting, specifically this election, has caused like a great divide between people. Why do you think there's so much division?
I think with the candidates that we currently have for president, and even some of our local elections and some of like the House of Representative elections, people are very polarized, and they feel that this person represents me and that person is the exact opposite of all of those things. I don't know that we have so much of a moderate person for people to choose from, because even people that are viewed as moderate might be skewed to one side or the other because they're in a party. So people say, no, they're really not. These are the things they believe in. So I think that's the hard part, is because like you are very impassioned by the things, and the things that people are very passionate about, one party might represent them and one might not. So I think that we have to some kind of way to create a discourse between everyone, because there is a middle ground. And eventually you want all these parties to work together because you want an agenda that benefits everyone.
Right.
And if they don't work together, we get no agenda, we get nothing.
Right. So should there be multiple parties?
This one's hard for me because I believe in a two-party system. I definitely think there should be other parties, so other things are represented. But it's hard because I have also watched in my lifetime that the third party split the vote for some that I may have wanted to win, because the candidate represented something that split those votes in certain elections, and they took some of those votes. And it's not that it was a bad thing. They were representing their beliefs, a whole party system, a lot of people in the country that agreed with them. But it meant maybe the candidate that I wanted didn't get those votes that would have gone to them because they went to the third party.
Right.
So I think that's difficult. But I also think sometimes a third party is an upstart, or it's not even an upstart. Sometimes, like the Green Party in New York State has been around for years, and they've always put forth an agenda of the things that they want to make sure get viewed and looked at, so that it's picked up by the other two parties, so that those concerns will be addressed.
So what would you say to someone who's voting for Kanye West?
That's a lovely vote you have there. If you believe that Kanye West will be the best president of the United States, that's outstanding.
Right.
Then go ahead and vote for Kanye.
Right.
The hard part is that I don't know that Kanye took it seriously, let alone anyone else took it seriously, because he didn't make all the ballots.
Right.
And he's not going to have a chance to win the presidency because he's not represented on enough of the ballots across the United States to be able to win election or not. And I think the hard part is too, is are you serious about voting for Kanye? If you believe in all the stuff that Kanye says, that's outstanding. If you're not serious and you basically used it as a write-in vote, then did you waste your vote or did you not?
Right.
If you basically voted for him facetiously.
I know on campus right now, you and myself included, but other faculty and staff on Cazenovia College's campus, best value, by the way, bang for your buck, guarantee it. What's happening on campus tonight?
So tonight, your program that's going on now, and it's live streaming. Yeah. So till 7:00. So make sure you pop on down to Common Ground so you can be a part of the action.
Common Ground's live.
Also,
we have a question. I'm sorry. From Lauren. How come almost every election cycle people talk about voting third party, and that being the right year for the third party voting? How come this hasn't been a popular choice? Am I reading that correctly? I don't have my glasses.
No, you read that correctly. Can I take this?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I mean, for myself, and this is my own opinion only, I will say that when people are not happy with either candidate, someone will say, well, hey, third party, go there and look.
Right.
I know I have a friend who totally believes in the Libertarian Party. I may have begged, please put your vote somewhere else this year. And I think it's not that it's bad. I think that sometimes those candidates aren't funded well.
Right.
And sometimes they are. Ross Perot definitely made a run for it. And that's before your time.
Yeah, that was definitely. I'm
go
like,
with
what?
that. But yeah,
so
there's sometimes when that really works, but it's very hard in the political machine that we have in the United States for a third party to make a go of it. And I think because we have people that will literally just vote their party line down their ballot. So I don't know that it's always. Local elections can do third party. I'm not so sure everyone else can.
Okay.
So
Thank you so much. Is it Lauren or was that Lauren?
I-
Lauren, thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for that
Lauren.
question. But I'm sorry before I rudely interrupted you by
No,
reading
that's
that
fine.
question. You were answering basically what's happening on
Mhm.
campus tonight.
So this evening in our residence hall lounges and in the student center, we are having discussions led by and facilitated by a residence life and or staff member from the campus community that will be facilitating conversations, and we can talk about the election, we can talk about your feelings about the election, we can talk about how you're doing in general, but know that we're definitely having refreshments and it's a time for open discourse. And I think that's the big thing, is having those civil discourses and having those conversations that we don't always get to have, because either it's not politically correct to have it at that time, or those are hard conversations to have, and some people aren't ready to have them, and maybe hopefully with us being all there, we can have that facilitated conversation. And it's okay to have different ideas and different opinions.
In your personal opinion, why do you believe it is difficult, or if you don't believe it, but why do you think it is difficult or challenging to have these difficult conversations?
I think it's different for everybody. For some people, they're shy. Some people, they don't think they know enough about the topic. And then there's other people who think they know too much about the topic, so they can never have the conversation with someone else because they won't know enough as them, and they don't think that conversation would go very far. So I think the other thing is too, is we all want to get along. Don't get me wrong, there's some people that don't. But most people want to get along, and they want to be friendly. They want to have those relationships. And I think sometimes they're worried to express their views because they think they might be looked at differently.
Right.
And I think that's part of who you are. So someone will accept you as all of those things as long as you respect their ideas too.
Right.
So
I guess to what you're saying tonight, why is it important for us to have these conversations on a college campus?
The whole point of being on a college campus is to learn from each other. And to not only you're learning from your classes. That's a given. You go to class, you learn lots of perspectives, you learn different things. That's also changes your perspective. The research that you do, the papers that you write, the fields that you look at, the things that you are interested in, the hobbies that you have are things you get to teach other people and help you either enhance those interests or maybe find a new interest too.
Right.
So that's the whole point of being in this environment, is to learn from each other. So.
I know there was some concerns about rioting and some concerns about some violence that may ensue because of this election.
Mm-hmm.
What steps, apart from this, what we just discussed, that the college, the Cazenovia campus is taking to kind of help and make our students feel safe and secure?
I think we want to make sure that everybody has a voice.
Right.
So if you want to talk and you want to have those conversations, you can. We can do those things. We can help facilitate some of those conversations. If it's something where you would like to have a more demonstrative kind of display of your opinion or ideas, there's ways to channel that through the village and set things up. As you want to do walks, you want to do a conversation like this where it's open to everybody, we can help facilitate those things and get those happening. So, and I mean, I think everyone is afraid. I mean, it's not everyone is afraid, I should say that. But I think there are some trepidation about where this might go either way. And will we be able to respect each other? And will everyone from the outside still be able to respect us too? And it's okay to express your ideas, but we worry about when does that expression become violent? We don't want that to happen.
Right.
So
there is some real fear around this election. And there's so much anxiety around this election. What do you believe is the root cause of this anxiety? And how can we kind of sort of mitigate the anxiety if we have any control over it?
I think the hard part is anxiety is a natural thing that happens. And it's okay because we anticipate not knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
And I think an election who is representing us is important. And for some of us, it's very important. For others, maybe not so important. So maybe that fear isn't there as much. But I think that everyone wants their voice heard. And if your candidate doesn't win, is your voice then not heard?
Right.
So I think you find ways to make sure that your voice is still heard. You can still influence your political leaders. Just because the person that you wanted to win didn't win, doesn't mean you still don't have a voice. You can still be represented. They are still your representative. So sometimes you need to let them know you exist. And they do speak to their constituents. You know, they have a whole staff of people that work with people. So, and maybe it's starting at the grassroots. Maybe it's doing an internship in DC. Maybe it's working with an organization that's local that represents the ideas that you have. But I think you can work on making those changes if you don't think they're going to happen otherwise.
Absolutely. I think you've provided so much information and powerful information to the viewers of just how to get involved, the importance of their voice. Because for so many people, they didn't have a voice for a very long time. And so now that they have a voice, the importance of using your voice to be heard. Is there anything that you would like to say to, the generation that's coming up? And, because we have millions of watchers right now, millions of viewers all over the world watching this. What would you say to the young and the voiceless?
It's important to have a voice, and voting is one of the simplest ways you get to have a voice. Don't get me wrong, there are still challenges to be able to register to vote. There's still challenges to get out and vote. But your vote wouldn't be important if people were trying to take it away, and that's a paraphrase from a John Lewis quote. Okay. But it is important that you do that, but it doesn't have to stop there. You can be active, you can be involved, you can be active with your community. You can be a representative for those that are around you. You can be active in Cazenovia. You can be active in your hometowns. You can be active wherever you are in the United States or the world to be a part of that community and get some buy-in for those things that you believe in. Mm-hmm. And you can be the change you want to see. I know it's cliche, but
I love a good cliche.
It is that it's true. So
right. I guess if I have any other questions, would just be, what is a particular policy or some policies that you're looking at for this election?
Oh. Yeah, I'm looking at a lot of them.
Okay. So your top 2 or 3. You can give one if that makes you feel.
Oh, because I want to give you a list.
Give me a list.
Because it's hard, because I think I have some interest for myself.
Right.
That I want to see represented, and I want to see
right?
had. And I think, and don't get me wrong, not every person that you vote for represents your list of things, but you look for who might represent that more. Mm-hmm. So. And I think it's hard because you have your list and you hope that it goes well. And when it doesn't go well, that's when you join a march. That's when you sign a petition. That's when you do some of those things. And so that people know, yep, there are people that really want that. Right. So I know there's some important things coming across the Supreme Court coming up. Right. That I would like to see our nations become a little bit more progressive in some areas in women's rights and LGBTQIA+. And I'd like to see that stay and not get reversed. I guess I'll leave it at that as my short list.
I think it's interesting that we're still trying to have conversations about the rights of human beings. Mm-hmm. And we have to put it on paper to say, this is your right.
And to make it legitimate. Yeah.
Like I'm not a legit human. I'm really from Area 54. you know, because why is it so crucial for them to try to?
It's hard because some people, you want it not just be the 1% that hold the power.
Right.
You want it to be the 100% that hold the power.
Right.
And I think sometimes we legislate that to make sure that the 1% can't take it away from the 99. And you fight and you claw for those things, and sometimes they go forward, sometimes they go back, sometimes they go forward again. And I think as we evolve and we know each other, you want to look out for each other. And I'd say that as humans, looking out for each other.
Right.
And I think some people think that certain rights shouldn't be allowed. And I think that's difficult because maybe it's none of your business what my rights are.
Right.
So
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
I just want to leave it like that. I don't even want to add anything else to it. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Live from Common Grounds Live. And representative from Cazenovia College, the #1 best value, noted by U.S. News Today. I'm just saying. And they're not paying me to say this. I mean, if I'm on salary, does that count? is that a
yes.
But no, seriously, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
I
for having
greatly
me.
appreciate you. All right. And we'll be right back. I like saying that. And we're back. I like saying that. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Patrick Chameleon. I am here joined with, is it William? What's your...
William, Will, doesn't matter.
Will.
I go by Will.
Will
Whatever you wanna
Gordon.
call me.
Gordon?
Yep, Gordon.
Will Gordon. Please introduce yourself, Will.
I'm Will Gordon. I am a desktop support technician and head coach of our esports program here at Cass College. I'm also an alum. I graduated in 2019.
Okay. Graduated last year and head and coach of the esports program. We're doing, this is kind of like right now.
Yep, virtual.
Virtual.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the esports program at CAS?
Yeah, so basically esports is electronic competitive video gaming, if you will. We are in line with all the other varsity games, so this is not a club. Some colleges treat it as a club. We treat it as a varsity sport. So when it comes to students wanting to join the esports team, I give it the same discipline as basketball, lacrosse, swimming. So GPA, academics,
Right.
they're all in line,
Absolutely.
just to keep it all on par.
And we're looking for students. So if
Yes,
you're
we are. We're
interested-
actively recruiting. I've been sending emails out to so many prospective students. We're really looking to add more to our program. I want more games. I want more teams. I want to make this thing a monster.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Not a
today
problem.
And to talk about it. So I'm sure you're aware. Today's
Yep.
November 3rd.
Yep.
It is the election. How do you feel about the election?
It's definitely an interesting one. I mean, every election is historic, right? I believe this one is going to be one where people are pretty hesitant to really call it early.
Right.
I think last election, I mean, you saw all the media call it way early. I mean, there was publications being sent out days in advance claiming the winner.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, there was a big change, right? So now I feel like people are more hesitant.
Right.
They're going to be, really making sure they get it right before they report. So this is one of the most unsure elections, I would say.
What are you hoping for as an end result of this long process?
I'm hoping for less division. I think we've gone through one of the most not diverse,
Divided.
thank you, I'm sorry.
vision?
Divided periods of American history, I would say, in a long, long time. I mean, obviously there was worse points in our American history, but
Right.
modern day American history, the last 30 years, it's been very divided. And I think we're at the tipping point of division. And in order for this country to move forward, we really need to find some common grounds and move forward.
What do you think have led to most of that division? And how can we address some of that division?
Social media.
Social media has
Social media, number one.
Okay.
To address it, we need to really jump down the issue, not jump down, but like jump on and take care of the issue of fake news.
Okay.
I don't care what side you're on. I think we can all agree that there's fake news, fake memes. You see a meme on Facebook and there's no source. It just said, oh, this person did this back then, and this is what they said to this. There's no source. Where's your citation?
Right.
Nowadays, the American public they're relying on memes. Some memes created by different countries looking to influence elections, right? And I'm not saying we're innocent in this country. I'm sure this country does it to all other elections. I mean, look at Israel. I mean, that was disputed many times. It needs to stop. Social media, I'm not calling for regulation. I'm just calling for the fake news to really be looked at, investigated.
Because I need net neutrality for me to do this, right? So,
well, yeah, net neutrality. That's another issue.
Right.
Probably talk about for the next few hours,
right?
That needs to be taken care of in order for the division to go away.
Right.
Let's get the truth out there first.
Absolutely.
Then let's talk about the truth. Then let's find the problems and talk about the solutions.
Absolutely.
So
there's a lot of anxiety around this election.
Yes.
Are you anxious?
I'm more interested to see the results. If you look at the polls, it says one thing, right? If you look at the Vegas bets, it says a whole different thing.
Oh yeah, because gambling is legal now.
Yes.
By
you look at
decree.
DraftKings, you look at FanDuel. I mean, people are quick to just say, it's garbage. But you're going to put money down on guessing something? I mean, if you're putting money down, you got to be pretty confident.
Wow.
And you have the polls choosing something, and you have people betting money choosing the other. I mean, you got to look at both sides and say, okay, this is going to be really, really weird.
You mentioned a word earlier, which I think is very important. You mentioned the word community.
Yeah.
How important is community in not just this election, but just for human beings in general and amongst all this division?
Yep. I think community is the one thing that brings people together. And community can be expressed in multiple formats. You have music, you have any visual thing like a movie or a TV show. You have community in the form of food. You bring people together with one of those aspects. You find common things to talk about. You may not agree with someone, but at least you can talk about the things you agree with together. We need more of that.
Right.
I think the government should be investing in programs to unite people that come from different parts of the country, different cultures, right? Almost like it'd be cool if the government organized a potluck, right?
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
So FBI sub mixed with a CIA salad.
You know what? You bring any division of the country's labor here together. You guys can understand what we're all about. I mean, that's how it is. So.
I think you're touching on so many important topics that we spoke about earlier.
Yep.
And just about finding common ground, finding community, citations.
Yeah.
Professor Geyer would have a field day with these memes in these citations. Is it APA or MLA? We got to figure it out, right? But citations is important. We have sources that are unknown. Mm-hmm. People are making inferences. People are making decisions. In regards to decisions, are there any particular policies that you're looking at specifically as it relates to this election?
So a big one, let's say if the current president is reelected, the biggest one is Section 230. Section 230. Section 230. So Section 230 basically means you have news agencies out there, and news agencies have certain requirements when they report news, right? Section 230, I believe they want to remove it. Removing 230 would make social media essentially a news organization.
Wow. Do you have citations on that?
I could pull them up right now.
You can pull them
up. I can do that right now. I can get a live fact check if needed.
Right. Wow. Section 230.
Section 230. Look it up on Google. Section 230. I think we have our live fact checker doing that right now.
What is Section 230? Everybody pull out your phones. Is this something that we need to lobby against?
I think it's going to be a one-sided thing. I think this is definitely a Republican thing. So this political climate, they're for removing Section 230, if I'm not mistaken. I personally think it's a both-side issue, because if the media is reporting on this current Democratic candidate, Biden, reporting something fake, right? The Democrats would be saying we want to remove Section 230, but right now, with the current political climate, Section 230 is being talked a lot about Republicans. So that's going to be an issue that's going to be taken up. Another thing would be Obamacare.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's going to make a difference if Joe Biden wins, given the state of the Supreme Court. Wow. So Obamacare is going to be a big one that's going to be looked at. The goal of the Republicans is to remove Obamacare.
So how important is it right now for people to vote?
Major decisions are going to be made. If one side wins, this huge thing's going to happen. If the other side wins, this huge thing's going to happen. So this one's very important. And we also are in the middle of a pandemic. So, one political side is going to suggest doing some sort of solution and the other's going to have a different solution. That could change the course of this pandemic for good or for bad. Right. And the thing is, the only way we're going to know is looking back if it was a good move or if not.
Well, in the sake of time,
yep.
Is there anything that you would like to say to the people about this election?
Yeah. Get out and vote, number one. I mean, New York State polls close at 9 p.m. I can tell you for those college kids that said, I live in a different state. I'll tell you this, you're too late now, but you could have gotten an absentee ballot and voted. That's exactly what I did in 2016. My house at the time was only one county over, but I didn't want to drive all the way to that county during the week. So I voted absentee. So you could have voted if you didn't. Number one. Number two, if you're not happy with the laws being passed, call your congressman. Even if you're going to college and you're from a different state, call your congressman. I've called Brindisi from the 22nd district of this state a few times regarding Spectrum, regarding the status of the second stimulus that's never arrived before this election.
Where's my check?
Where is it? What's going on? Why are you going on vacation in the summer?
When he did not go on vacation.
The Congress went on vacation. They came back, but as you know, they went on vacation while still debating the second stimulus, did not pass it.
Did my stimulus check pay for those vacations?
Your taxes did.
My taxes,
Your taxes did. Look into what your tax dollars are going into. Your votes count.
Votes count. Well, in that case, I think this is an amazing way to end this segment. Will, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone out there in YouTube land, the millions of followers and the millions of viewers that we currently having watching us. And thank you, Common Grounds, for allowing us to host this. Remember, your voice matters. Go out and vote. Make a difference. Contact your local congressman. Contact your local politician to figure out how can you be a part of the change that you want to see. And be the change that you want to see, to quote Tiffany. And we appreciate your time this evening. And we'll see you next time. Peace.